Dusum Samje Tam Cheching O Ritam Chokor Jamsa Chabda Junjin Sawe Llama Shabdul Dimame Bala Gosum Raptu Gabe Gone Cha Salshing Chapsun Ye Ordi Dakshin Semchen Tam Chechi Jumin Chingro Jinji Laptus O Mintu Jinji Bodana Dusum Samje Kunjing O Nye Ransam Chokor Monsum Tunzepe Sawe Lame Shabla Chapsardu Gongji Tokwa Babar Jinji Laptus O Semjenamji Sambadang Loye Chera Jidawar Chechon Tumon Tepaye Chuchi Korlo Kordusor Chasarwadan Chijin Shabadang Jesu Yirang Korshing Sorwaye Gewa Chonse Daki Chisapa Tamche Zobe Chandu Chiramo It feels easy to just remain in silence. Anandoham, you know. But since I was requested by Swami to talk, then the appropriate response is to talk. And specifically, this evening, Swami Sitaji requested that I talk about what we call Guru Yoga, Guru Yoga. I walked in the door of the Swami house for dinner and immediately we launched into a very profound discussion. And after about 15 minutes I said, if this was recorded, we can just play it back at the satsanga. Enough. But then she said, please talk about the Guru Yoga, because that was more or less the theme. So whenever I explain these points or principles of Dharma, I like to take reference to the Tibetan language, which was more or less created in a large sense. At least the terminology was created to capture the letter and the soul, or the realization behind the teachings, transmissions of the Dharma that came from India, going back more than 1200 years now. So often to fully express the meaning of something, the Tibetan term would have two syllables instead of, or two words instead of one word from Sanskrit. Sometimes even two words is not enough. But yoga in Tibetan is naljor. And nal means that which is just completely natural. Something that is the way it is without anyone making it that way. The natural state, the way things simply are, when we don't mess them up, like our nature, before we get confused. And jor means to connect with. We could even say to reconnect with. So yoga is the system or practice and study to reconnect with our own natural state. That's very consistent with what you know, I'm sure. And what about this term guru? In Tibetan, guru is Llama. Did you know that? No.
Yes.
Some yes. So Llama is two syllables together again, and La means something that is very exalted or high, or it can also mean something that is very rich and full, or even heavy, like laden with wonderful qualities. And Ma means mother, like the embodiment of compassion or kindness. So Llama means someone who is very lofty and has great qualities, but is kind of pulled down or drawn down by the weight of those qualities and the power of compassion to be active in the world, to share the teachings of Dharma, practice of yoga with others. So this is the meaning of Llama. Guru. So you put these two together, you have Guru Yoga. Well, what is that? What is Guru Yoga? In the practice traditions of Tibetan Buddhism, Guru Yoga is everything. It's the entire path. It's the ground, it's the path, it's the fruition. Why is that? What does that mean? There is a natural state, a true nature, to all apparent phenomena, to experiencing mind. There is simply the way it is. There's many words for this in Tibetan, many words in Sanskrit. Dharmata, tatata, many words. In our current state, we can think, we can feel, we can analyze, we can study, reflect, we can practice forms of meditation that involve the mind, using the faculties. But that which feels unfamiliar to us most of the time, or feels kind of distant from us, is that which we are told is the most natural state, is reality. It's like somewhere out there, or something we have to find or discover or get to, as if it's somehow separate. We say it is our nature, it is the reality of our own being, and yet it sounds like we are here and the reality of our being is somewhere else. So the yoga is to connect with that and close that gap, that apparent gap between who we think we are and what we think is happening. The gap between that and the natural state or the true condition of our own being. To close that gap, which is just an illusion or a delusion or a confusion. Yoga is the practice to do that, to reconnect. And the Guru is the gateway or the method and the instruction to make that possible for us. So we say there are countless realized, awakened beings who attained enlightenment, self-realization, Buddhahood in the past. We know only their names. We know only of their deeds, their activities. We cannot meet them, we cannot receive teachings from them. And even in our times, there are great masters of the past, and we can't meet them face to face. We can't be in their presence and see what it's actually like when someone is completely awake, completely realized. We can just read about them in their spiritual biographies, or we can read their writings, which give us clues, but we have so many habits with words, right? We have so many habits of how we relate to words as information, or as poetry, or all these different things, and they are associated with our ordinary mind in many ways, and so it's difficult from words alone to convey or to capture what the being of a realized master is. They express their teachings, but then we take those teachings and we translate them back to the paradigm of our own ordinary experience for the most part. Not completely, but for the most part. So this is a problem. We want to know exactly what it's like to be free of confusion, free of disturbance, free of bad habits, of negative actions of body, speech, mind. Where is the example of that? Who can show us what it's like to be that free? That's the job of the Guru. So the real Guru, and this is what we were discussing before, the real Guru, when we say Guru, the real Guru is the truth itself, is reality itself. And the real Guru is a mind that and is immersed in the knowledge of that reality, free of any confusion, free of any delusion, fully realized of its own nature. In fact, it is the nature of your mind and my mind and everyone's mind and the Buddha's mind to be aware of that mind. That's the natural quality of awareness, to know itself. But we always forget, we lose track. Someone who's completely connected with that innate quality of self-awareness and never misses a beat, never gets fooled by anything that arises or appears within that state of awareness, is a realized master. And the way such a realized master relates to things, to appearances, to thoughts, to emotions, to everything that can arise is very different from how ordinary beings like us do it within our state of dualism and confusion. And so we need the example of such a realized being to show us what it is actually like. Not so that we just get an idea about it, which is the fabrication of our conditioned mind, or based on what limited experience and understanding we have, but to just show us. When there is an authentic guru in the world, anyone who meets that being is touched, is affected by the natural blessing of such wakefulness, of such realization. It changes them, it changes their lives. We say Draltse Dunden, which means any kind of connection with awakened mind embodied by such a being is of benefit to everyone. An awakened being can inspire, can change, can create whole schools. Schools of Buddhism, schools of yoga. Follows for generations and generations and generations, just by the fact of being in the world, being who they are, and sharing their experience in all different ways. Inspiring the people who follow them, and the next generation, and the next generation, and the next generation. This is called lineage. Because this wisdom of a realized master is a self-knowing wisdom, it's not something you can just put on a plate and show to somebody. It's something that you embody. It's something that you express with your entire being. And when you have a body, and you have a face, and you have a voice, and you have a hand that can write or fingers that can type, then everything you do with your body, speech, mind is an expression of that realization out of the natural wish to share it with others. So sometimes it doesn't matter what is said, it matters who says it. And there's many great stories about that. Like someone can say to you, just don't think about it. It's a long story I've told here before. Someone can say, just don't think about it. And you're like, yeah, I know I shouldn't think about it. It's just making me crazy to keep thinking about this thing. Then you go in front of a real guru and they look at you and they just say, don't think about it. And you're like, right. Now I get it. That's the difference. Because something in us recognizes that wakeful quality because it's also our own nature. So there's a resonance, there's a recognition that can happen. We call that transmission, we call it blessing, there's many words for it. Guru Yoga, so the Guru is one who realizes that nature and then naturally, spontaneously, compassionately just does express it by their being, by their presence, by their body, speech, and mind activity. We need the examples of gurus to show us what is already most true about ourselves. Because we think that what arises as thought in our own mind is telling us the truth. The thoughts that arise in our mind are somehow true. They're a true description of us, they're a true description of the world. And without examining, this is how we go about our business day to day, just believing the thoughts and emotions that arise in our own mind. This is called ego, right? My truth, my reality, the fabrication of my own conditioned mind and emotions. When you meet a guru, it becomes easy to see that you are just making this all up and that you are making yourself suffer. Because the guru is not making anything up and the guru is not suffering. That is a beautiful instruction, that is a beautiful example, a beautiful teaching. And that inspires trust, it inspires devotion, it creates this environment of receptivity to be ready to train your mind, to tame your mind, to tame your being, to try to emulate, follow the Guru's example so you can become that kind of being who is so perfectly awake and relaxed and happy and full of love and joy. What's the secret? Kind of hungry to find out, and so you serve the Guru with your body, speech, mind. Try to get closer and closer so you can figure out that mystery. What makes that person tick? What makes them so different from you? Why don't they react to this in the way I would or I would expect someone to? How can they just be compassionate and open and relaxed even while this thing is happening or that thing is happening? And how come I can't? When we relate to a guru, we learn to trust our own ego less and less, and to trust wisdom mind, embodied, expressed by the guru, more and more. That is the connection or reconnection that happens through attending or serving, you could say apprenticing with an authentic guru. The way to practice, this is the principle of Guru Yoga, the way to practice Guru Yoga is almost infinite. Remembering the Guru and the qualities of the Guru is a good way to put our own problems and confusion in context and to reduce, you could almost say laugh at our own ego clinging and delusion. Always having the exemplar or the model, we use this word in Tibetan, namtar, the model of liberation. Having the model before us to mirror and to serve as a checkpoint, an indication of what's real and what's delusion, what's helpful and what's harmful, what is true and what is false. So we remember the Guru, we supplicate the Guru for blessing. We think, no matter what happens to me, whether it seems good or bad, whether I feel happy or sad, whether in my own mind I think I am making progress or not, no matter what happens, I'm going to trust your wisdom and your example and your blessing more than I trust my own judgment, my own experience and my own ideas. Because I've trusted my own judgment, my own ideas and my own experience forever, and it has just brought me to here. I am still not free. I am still not realized. You are. It's obvious. So the choice is clear. More of the same, or letting go, seeing what's out there beyond my own ego fixation, my own ego boundaries. That's the choice you make over and over and over over and over again when you practice Guru Yoga. And Guru Yoga you practice with your whole being. Your heart, you can sing, you can dance, you can visualize, you can pray, you can silently meditate, you can cry. Your whole being is brought into the process, fully. Otherwise you cheat yourself. And one of the Guru Yoga prayers that I recite every day says, this time I'm really going to mean it when I say it. Not just words coming out of my mouth, but from my heart, so that I really, really am invoking your guiding wisdom and blessing. This time really counts. That's very important to have that sense of immediacy and urgency to your practice. And when there's a guru involved who's kind of watching you, in your mind, watching you, then you don't feel it's as easy to get away with slacking off, or procrastinating, or being half-hearted, non-committal. Again, because the example is there to show you you're just cheating yourself. Then there's supplication and imagining that the Guru is someone out there separate from you, who is showing you, who is teaching you, who is caring for you, whose love is unwavering no matter whether you are wise or foolish, clear or confused. This outer Guru Yoga practice. In inner Guru Yoga practice, you can actually, in person or in your imagination, receive various empowerments of body, speech, mind, wisdom from the Guru. Feel closer and more strongly connected to your so-called ordinary body, speech, mind, more closely connecting with the wisdom or enlightened body, speech, mind of the Guru's being. And then finally, in the secret or ultimate Guru Yoga practice, you drop any idea whatsoever of there being any separation between the Guru's being and your being. You go right to the heart of it, the very core, the very essence, where there is no difference. All the differences were apparent, the product of your confused mind and your emotions, misperception. So this is one description of Guru Yoga practice. But to remember the Guru at all times and therefore always be connecting to this wisdom and this reality that the Guru shows means to look at everything in your experience as an instruction from the Guru, as an expression of the Guru. So I look at you and I think you are all here acting so nice, like you're interested in listening to me, because my Guru is giving me this opportunity to learn how to be a better Dharma teacher. You know? So you're all very kindly coming from my Guru's mind to patiently, with smiles on your faces, and sitting there nicely, listening to me. It's through the blessing of my Guru that this is happening to me, like that. You look at everything that way. You look at it and you look at your own reaction and you see, what is my Guru trying to teach me by showing me how I am responding or reacting to this situation, to this person? Am I being very present and clear and awake and warm and kind, or am I not doing that? If I am doing that, then the Guru is giving me the opportunity to do that. And if I'm not doing that, the Guru is sending me this person or this situation to show me where I need to do more work. And you could say you're just choosing to look at things that way because it's very kind of skillful or practical. But if you do it long enough, it becomes impossible to say that it's not actually that way, that you're just kind of... It's not an as if, it's really like that. Your world is the creation of your opportunity to realize enlightenment, the way that your Guru and the Guru's Guru and the Gurus before them did. This is what we're doing here. And we're on some kind of spiritual path to awakening, yogic path. So this is Guru Yoga. What else to say about it? There's the Guru, which is the true nature of mind, this self-existing, self-knowing awareness, which is non-material and imbued with qualities like compassion and loving kindness and wisdom. There's the Guru who actually shows up looking like a human being, so that the Guru can talk to you and give you opportunities to train and to study and to learn. There's the Guru of the written words of the teachings, which when you read them, there's a voice in your mind speaking them, and then you gain some wisdom from that. It's some kind of platform or symbolic form in which teachings from the Guru can be transmitted to you. I'm interested in this practice we do often in the Bahamas ashram, where somebody's birthday, then they read a message from the Upanishads, Swami Sivananda. It's like the Guru is speaking to the birthday boy or the birthday girl through the letter. It's amazing how it works out. More often than not, it's just quite amazing how it works out. So you can say, we're acting as if the Guru is speaking to us, but in fact, the Guru is speaking to us. There's no difference. So that's one expression or one dimension of the Guru's being. And then, like I said, there's what we call Llama, or the Guru of the symbolism of the display of our own experience. Everything that arises in our experience is a display of the wisdom and compassionate activity of the Guru trying to show us, to teach us. When your whole life becomes a container like this of a vehicle of Guru Yoga practice, then your path is very fast. Because there's no deviations, there's no timeouts, everything is an instruction, everything keeps moving you along in the right direction. There's also no place to hide. So we were joking earlier, I was like, when you're beginning to train under a qualified Guru, it feels like they're just trying to make you miserable. And only later, perhaps even when they're gone from their body, many years have passed and you've matured a little bit, you've gained a little bit more wisdom, then you can look back and say, wow, how kind was my Guru to put up with me and my confusion and delusion, and even my resentment and bitterness and rebelliousness of being an immature, childish being who thought that they were just trying to bother me. By staying on top of me and keep pushing me, reminding me the right direction all the time. No space. All space, but no space. You know what I mean? Like that. So there's many ways to describe the Guru, the relationship with the Guru, and the scope of Guru Yoga practice. It's easy to think when you have a human Guru with whom you relate over a long period of time that the Guru is that person and their personality and the history of your relationship and all the things you went through. You think that's the Guru. But then if your Guru is, let's say, much older than you or for other reasons passes away from this world before you do, leaves the body behind, then it's a very powerful reminder that that was just the channel through which the real Guru is broadcasting, communicating with you. Because it's the wisdom, the wakefulness of the Guru that is the real Guru, not the personality through which it's expressed, not the memories and so on. Because when a fully realized being no longer is contained within the apparent shell of a physical body, then the full scope of their, what we call Dharmakaya realization, their realization of reality becomes unbounded. It becomes like a point of infinite dimensions. So that we were talking how many times, even in my own life experience, I've seen many times a great master, a great siddha, a great accomplished being passes away. It's not like when an ordinary person does. It's like suddenly space and wisdom become inseparable. Because the wisdom realization of their mind has no specific location. It has no physical form. It's unbounded. And so if we have devotion and we have some karmic connection and we have some practice under our belt, then we can be amazingly blessed and inspired when a great master passes away. We get more of a flavor of what it is like to experience things, reality, the way they do. So it's considered a very powerful blessing and a powerful occasion for practice, for realization when a great master leaves the body. And I've seen this. There are even signs in the environment, like completely clear blue sky, or rainbows in the middle of open sky, or different kinds of unusual sounds. Just a feeling like the whole environment is completely at peace. Every being, from the smallest insect to the largest, is just completely at peace for some period of time, like a hush falls over the world. Thoughts just drop away. Everything becomes very quiet without any effortful practice. So even the environment is blessed by the realization of a great being. I had a course recently where I was teaching people Tara sadhana. You know Tara? Some of you know Tara. It's the female Buddha who embodies the quality or expresses the quality of active or proactive compassion. Very, very important deity form, divine form in Tibetan Buddhism, in Indian Buddhism. And I was trying to describe Tara, and one guy kept saying, you said that, Tara is like this, Tara is like that. And, who is Tara? I said, think of it this way. When we talk about Tara, we're talking about these qualities of awakened mind, these qualities of compassion, the lack of confusion. From that point of view, Tara is more real than you are, than whoever you think that you are. Those are the real qualities, or those are the qualities of reality when it is realized. You are just someone that you think you are. Not much power to that, not much realization. That's the illusion. So don't struggle to imagine what is Tara and how does she look like and how come I can't see her. Just understand that what you are trying to grasp through this practice and relate to is that Tara is more real than you are. It's like the coins fell off his eyes or something. When we say Tara like this, when we relate to Tara, this is no different from saying the Guru. In Tibetan Buddhism, when we practice these deities like Avalokiteshvara, Chenrezig, or Tara, or many others, we actually see them and relate to them as pure expressions of the Guru, as forms that symbolically and visually and so on embody the qualities of the Guru. Just a different face of the Guru, like interchangeable, one nature. So, therefore, all of these deity yoga practices that we do in Tibetan Buddhism are also Guru yoga practices. That's why I say it's all Guru yoga. When you just rest In non-duality and formless meditation, resting in your own mind nature effortlessly, that's also Guru Yoga. The ultimate Guru Yoga. It's all Guru Yoga. Like that. Okay, maybe we can have more than 2 minutes for questions. Through the grace of the Guru. Yes?
Do we have a finite number of previous lives? And if not, why come there's different people in different stages of enlightenment?
I'm trying to follow your logic. Do we have a finite number of previous lives? And if not, how come we're at different stages?
If we're infinite, why do we?
And you're worried about this because?
I'm curious.
Does it change anything that you need to do right now? Work on the things that are helpful right now. Is your goal to discover your own truest nature?
Yes.
What will help you do that?
Spiritual practice.
Guru Yoga.
Yeah, thank you. It was a perfect setup. Any other of my Guru's embodiments wish to speak?
I do have a question. There are different taras. There's a white tara and a green tara. What's the difference in the tradition?
Same nature, different activity, different spiritual activity or enlightened activity.
What is the best way to not fall into the trap of thinking your guru is Hindu?
Well, your Guru is a human being. But what does that mean? You can't say just a human being. No one is just a human being. We were discussing this at dinner. It's like, what is just a cow? As opposed. Maybe I'll tell the story about Maitreya again then. Yeah. Okay. So there's a great Indian Buddhist master named Asanga. And to this day there's a tradition that comes from Asanga called the vast conduct lineage of Asanga. So a lot of the practices and disciplines and vows of Buddhism come all the way from the time of Asanga, which is about 1600 years ago. And Asanga was very devoted to a particular Buddha, the Buddha of the future eon named the Buddha Maitreya. And he decided to go into retreat for 12 years, or at least until he realized the nature of the Buddha Maitreya and met the Buddha Maitreya face to face and received instruction from him. So he was real gung-ho, very diligent, like very determined, but in kind of like a tough way, like I'm going to tough this out and I'm going to have perfect discipline. And he practiced and he practiced and he prayed and he meditated in a cave alone. 3 years went by. He had no vision, he had no realization. And it felt very dry and he felt very frustrated and disappointed and fed up. So he went outside, he was going to leave his retreat, and he came across some guy rubbing a feather across the surface of a boulder. And he said, "That's really strange. I know I've been in a cave for 3 years, but this looks very strange." So he said, "My curiosity gets the best of me. What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, well, you see the sun coming over the mountain there, and my house is over there, and this boulder is kind of in the way, so I'm not getting much sun on my house, and so I'm removing the boulder by rubbing the feather on it." He's like, "You know that's going to take a very, very long time." He's like, "Okay, I don't mind." You know. Then he thought, well, this guy's completely nuts. And if he's willing to go to that much trouble for the sake of something that small, maybe I shouldn't give up trying to see the Buddha Maitreya after only 3 years of practice. I should go back into my cave. So he goes back into his cave and he tries even harder and harder and harder and harder. Another 3 years go by, still nothing. Dry. The well is dry. You know. Again he leaves, similar thing. He sees, someone rubbing a soft cloth against like an iron bar. He says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm trying to make a needle." Same thing. Another 3 years. 9 years. Again, similar kind of thing. I'll make it a bit shorter. Finally, 12 years. Still nothing. Now he's completely disheartened. Everything I have tried, using my best effort, has not worked. The Buddha Maitreya does not care about me. So he leaves and he's walking back into town, just kind of dejected, staring at the ground, and he sees something in the road in front of him. It's a dog. Just a dog. The dog is lying there in the road, and it's lying on its side, and it's kind of panting and heaving, and he gets closer and he sees there's a big, bleeding, open wound, a sore in the dog's side, and there's, you can see like its intestines through the wound, it's like completely through the flesh. And he sees that inside the wound there are also like these maggots that are like eating the flesh of the dog. It's horrible. And the dog is whimpering and moaning and crying. So he's like, I've got to do something to help this poor suffering creature. What can I do? So he tries to walk up to the dog and it turns around and snarls at him. Because it's hurt and it's afraid. He's like, I can't even approach the dog to give it any comfort. I don't want to hurt the dog. I don't even want to hurt the maggots. What am I supposed to do? So he prays to the Buddha Maitreya, please show me. Not knowing what else to do, he closes his eyes because it's so smelly from this, the pus in the wound, it's a horrible smell. Closes his eyes, blocks his nose, and goes closer and closer to this big wound of the dog, thinking that he's going to, with this, just the edge of his tongue, pick out the maggots and remove them to kind of ease the suffering of the dog without hurting the maggots. And he leans forward and he leans forward, falls on his face, there's no dog there. He opens his eyes, he's shocked, he looks up. There's the Buddha Maitreya in all his glory and magnificence. And he says, where have you been? And he said, I've been there all along. I was watching you in the cave. I was like right there and you just couldn't see me because you were just so determined and so fixated on your own idea and your own practice. Your heart was not open. Your devotion was not there. I was there for you to see, but you couldn't see me. And then I was the farmer rubbing the boulder with the feather, and I was the guy in the market trying to whittle a needle out of an iron bar. You still didn't recognize me. And now finally I came to you as this dog, and it opened your heart enough that you could really see my true face. Purified your delusion, your karma enough that you could see me. And Asanga said, No, I don't believe you. An ordinary dog is an ordinary dog. Buddha Maitreya is a Buddha Maitreya. An ordinary person is just a human being. A Buddha is not a human being. Human being is not a Buddha. Right? So Maitreya said, oh, okay, I'll prove it to you. I owe you that much. I'll prove it to you. He said, put me on your shoulder and let's go into town. So the Buddha Maitreya sits on Asanga's right shoulder, he's carrying him on his shoulder, and they walk into town, and all the townspeople see them, and they're like, what are you doing with that foul-smelling dog on your shoulder? And they start throwing rocks at him. So is the Guru a human being or not a human being? Is a dog just a dog, or is it the Buddha Maitreya? It's up to you, right? The qualities of the Guru are the qualities of the Guru. The qualities of the devotee are the qualities of the devotee. When those come together, then everything is possible. Like that. And that, by the way, answers a lot of questions about, well, what if your Guru is not really that great a Guru? Or what if the Guru really is great, but I'm too confused and I'm the one who can't see it? This solves all those problems. Think about this story. Other questions?
I don't know if I should ask this, but I was reading a lot of things, and I had this interview with this one cool guy who was saying something about, I don't know if you've ever heard this, my question is if you've heard this, is because the earth is a living entity, he was saying that it has its own Kundalini, and where the Kundalini comes out is where that civilization or those people will experience enlightenment or whatever. And I heard Tibet was where that Kundalini was emerging for about 10,000 years, although it's moved since to South America or something like this. But for a long time, it was coming out of Tibet, and that's what they say is there's a peak of civilization for quite some time there. I was wondering if you've ever heard that.
This sounds like a chicken and egg problem. Is it because the people in Tibet practiced yoga, practiced Dharma so beautifully for so long that the energy emerged there, or vice versa?
I don't know. That's a really good twist there.
I suggest we do an experiment to make this place such a place, and then we'll know. How about that? Okay, so I know it's bedtime for some people, so let me just do closing dedications, and please do your own closing prayers. Gewadi nyurtudang paden lama drupjurne drowa chikchang maluva de salagabarsho jambar ba jitar jambadang kantu zangbo de andejente de ta kanji jisu dablo jing gewadi datam jiraptu dusan shebe jarwa tam jiji moa kamna choktu ngabade dakshin gewi tsawadi kanchang Sambo Jirato Morji Chanjo Samcho Grimboche Mache Panam Chejurchi Chepa Nyampa Mepaya Kone Kondukawarshu. May the mind of awakening arise where it has not yet arisen, and once it has arisen, may it not weaken, but grow stronger and stronger. Thank you.